Welcome to Life Conversations with Senior Helpers, the podcast that takes you on a heartfelt journey through the art of aging gracefully. Join our hosts, Christina Chartrand and David Chandler, as they engage in candid and compassionate discussions about both the joys and challenges of growing older. Tune in to gain valuable tips, expert advice, and essential resources that empower you or your loved ones to embrace the beauty in every stage of life. Let's embark on these enlightening conversations together. Here are your hosts, David and Christina.
Hi, this is Christina Chartrand, and welcome to Life Conversations. Very excited today. I need to share a little information about this guy. He actually spoke at our Senior Helpers Conference last year and was a huge hit. We got a lot of really great feedback. I don't know if Matt, if you knew that, but I would like to welcome everyone, Matt Thornhill. He is, I like to call you, I don't know if I should be saying this, kind of a guru in the senior space. And so I'm going to let you, I don't know if anybody said that to you before, but I'd like to see your thoughts, like how in the world did you get from what you did before, kind of the traditional office type job, until what you're doing now?
Oh, well, that question could take, I don't know, 40 years to answer because I have had a 40 plus year career in advertising and marketing. And basically the consistency is I've been studying consumer behavior since I got out of college. And the consumer I've been studying for most of that time has been the baby boom generation, because back 40 years ago, they were the 18 to 49-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And then about 20 years ago, they started turning 50. And now they're all turning 60 this year. The last boomers turned 60. So I continue to be focused on all things really related to boomers and their consumer behavior. And as my career has evolved, obviously, I'm now looking at, well, how are they going to impact growing older in America? How are they going to change and transform what it means to be older in America? And what does it mean for products and services? What do they need? What do they want? What are organizations and companies and marketers doing to reach them? Short answer is they're ignoring them, but that's a different issue. Mm-hmm. So that's I wouldn't say I knew that this was going to be my path, but clearly by just being focused on understanding consumer behavior and focused on that generation, mm-hmm. It's become my path.
So tell me a little bit about consumer behavior, because I was actually kind of thinking a little bit about that. What are some of the trends that you're seeing right now?
Well, the one that we've been hearing for probably the last 10 years or so is that boomers are changing what it means to be older. You've probably heard the expression, 60 is the new 40 or 50 is the new 30. And that's actually malarkey. What we've done is we've made 60 to the new 60. We've changed what it means to be 60 and now 70 and 75 and soon to be 80. If you had asked me, 15 years ago that Bruce Springsteen would sell out a one-man show on Broadway when he's in his 70s, I would have said, no, he's born to run. He won't be doing that. Mm-hmm. But he's doing it. And, Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson are on the road. They're going to be in my neck of the woods in the next couple of weeks. It's like, and they're in their 80s and 90s.
I just saw Billy Joel and Sting.
There you go.
Man, they were great. They were awesome.
So this idea that, you get to age 65 and you're done was an idea that the prior generations had. And the reason they had it is because they had a lifespan that they thought they'd live to be about 75. So you quit at 65, you spend 5 years traveling maybe with your spouse or partner, and then 5 years playing with the grandkids, and then you get the call to the great beyond. But that's not happening now with the longevity bonus, with the pharmaceuticals that can help you manage chronic conditions, with organizations like Senior Helpers that can help you kind of manage your life, even if you're losing some of your physical abilities and your daily activities of daily living you need help with. We're living longer. And that living longer now translates, the generation that started that was the generation before ours, before the boomer generation, who, in fact, I'll tell you a story. My father-in-law lived to 94, and he used to tell me when he was in his 90s, it's like, man, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I wouldn't have quit at 65. Mm-hmm. Well, here I am, 64, and I have no plans to retire.
Yeah.
Because I've got, maybe 20 years. Maybe I can make it to my mid 80s before I really need to slow down. I mean, but why slow down now? So that's the big kind of consumer trend, I'll say, that's going to shape our society and culture for the next 20 years or so.
I can see that.
It's okay to be old is what it comes
right.
down to.
And I guess it's what you're saying. It is. It's okay to if you really enjoy working and you love it, and you're contributing. Like I feel like now, I mean, I'm, an executive of a company, and I keep thinking I will retire here. This is what I'll do, but I'm not retiring now. Like I love what I do, and I'm 59, and and I know there's a lot of women I have many women friends who don't do what I do these days, and they're getting excited for their first grandchild and all of that. But me, I'm like, no, this is what I find, this what drives me every day. It drives me every day is my work. And I really am proud of all the things that I've accomplished up to this. So I totally see that. And I feel like what you're saying is, we're going to see more and more of that. We're going to see more people not just saying, okay, because there's no pension anymore. That's gone. Right. So it's your pension is your 401k and what you're saving. And if we're living longer, then people are going to keep doing something, right? Are going to keep in these jobs, which, is interesting to think about what that's going to look like, as, how seniors are going to continue working. And is it going to affect, like, if you just want a job, you want something to do, is it going to affect some of those jobs that normally younger people would do? Or people?
Yeah, there's actually two demographic realities that are kind of coinciding. One is, since the birth control pill hit the market in 1965, we have not been making babies like we made back during the baby boom. We went from having 4 kids to having 2.1, and that's about the replication rate of a population. We're now actually below that. We're like 1.7. So we don't have an abundance of younger people to kind of step in and replace this baby boom that's stepping aside at this stage of life. We have kind of the same numbers of each year. We have about 4 million people reaching age 18. We have 4 million people reaching 30. We have 4 million people reaching 50. We have 4 million people reaching 65. It's the same. It's like this on the population pyramid, if you will. Mm-hmm. So we don't have enough young people. Secondly is the fastest growing segment of the workforce, because if those numbers aren't growing, the workforce eventually is going to stay the same. And the only place it's going to grow is if we keep older people in the workforce longer. Mm-hmm. And 20 years ago, the year 2000, the percentage of the workforce who was 55 and older was 1 in 7. So, you riffed them. You got them to retire early. You got rid of them because they were just 1 in 7. Today, they're 1 in 4. 1 in 4 of the workplace is already over 55. So you can't afford to have them go because, I don't know, what do they have? Experience, knowledge, institutional, property, all intellectual property about the company in their head. You shouldn't let them walk. So what we're going to do is have to figure out how do we continue to tap into this workforce at a stage in life where they're ready to actually slow down. Mm-hmm. They don't want to work 40 hours a week, perhaps. They don't want to work 50 weeks a year. Mm-hmm. So how do you do job sharing? Basically, a question I will ask audiences when I'm in front of them, businesses, I'll say, I'll explain the numbers to them, and I'll say, how many of you have a strategy for finding, keeping, and retaining workers over 55? And no hands go up. And I'm like, okay, then that's on you. Yeah. Because that's where the growth is going to come. It's not from more 18-year-olds or more 25-year-olds. It's going to be from keeping your 60-year-olds in the workplace, or your 65-year-olds even.
That is really interesting. I think that I'm amazed by that. And I feel like that is something important for all businesses to be thinking about, and for people my age, our age, to be speaking up and saying what we want, right? Because it goes back, is some part of it virtual, is it that job sharing, which I think, could, and I do think technology plays a bigger role now that you're able to, because my word for guilt, like this, Matt, my word for 2024, I pick a word, every year, is balance this year. Because I, so much traveling and so many things that I'm doing that I really want to find time for me. and find time for balance to enjoy my family and the things that I do on a day to day versus just constantly, being on the go.
Yeah,
So
that's an admirable word for this year, I
we'll
think.
see. We'll give it a shot this year. I want to talk because you were talking about the consumer behavior and some of the things that I began to see or the things that I notice are one, visual advertising. So visually advertising something for a senior. And I even go back and look at some of the things with senior helpers, with kind of the sad senior with the old hands, next to somebody else taking care of them, right? And how that doesn't even look like you, like why you're looking at a photo like that. And then I'm also looking at things like compression stockings. Like lately I've seen compression stockings that have like the fun colors on it, right? With, where just like fun socks are versus the plain all white, So, do you see that the market is beginning to change in order to advertise to the 60-year-old plus generation?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I haven't seen the compression socks, but I love that idea.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason not to be joyful that you have found a product that's going to enable you to kind of live life better at this stage of life.
Mm-hmm.
A big issue, and it's been true for 60 years, a big issue in the marketing and advertising world is that the people that are creating the ads are young. They're in their 20s and 30s, maybe into their 40s. And by the time you're in your 50s, you're usually not in advertising anymore. You've kind of grown tired of it. And the 30 and 40-year-olds, smart as they may be, they can do the research, they can have the focus groups, but I got to tell you, it takes one to know one. I didn't know what it was like to be 64 until I got to be 64. Mm-hmm. And yet when I was a young advertising guy in my 20s, I remember trying to do ad campaigns for people in their 50s who I thought had one foot in the grave.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm playing pickleball this afternoon. I don't have any feet in the grave. I'm still active and got plenty to do. And that mindset of, well, we need to help fix aging. Aging is a disease that we need to cure. That mindset shows up in products and product advertising often for older adults. So the ones that don't have it are the ones that I guarantee you there's older adults who are involved in making those campaigns or advising them on those campaigns that say, hey, wait a second, we are still alive and vibrant and have energy and excited about what's next. So how are you going to speak to me where I am in my life? And again, a 30-year-old, you can't even imagine that you're going to have a vibrant life at 64. And a 64-year-old is like, what's wrong with you? And that's exactly what we have.
No, and I see that all over the place. So, I live in Florida, and though there are some places that really advertise to the pickleball, happy hour, fun, lifestyle, there is still constant advertisement out there around the poor, sad senior who's feeble and needs help,
Yeah.
And it's just, and I do think that needs to change. And you're right. There needs to be, 60-year-olds on advertising teams to help identify that, to not, because I find it insulting. Actually, I find the word 55 plus community insulting.
Yeah.
So tell me about Openly Gray.
Okay. Openly Gray is a nonprofit advocacy group that I started 3.5 years ago now. And it was really came out of the issue that I saw a couple of trends. One trend is that boomers kept getting older, so they were becoming the older adult. The second trend is we make fun of older adults. And I mean our entire culture makes fun of older adults. We've never had an Eastern mindset where, the cartoon was always going up a mountain to see the wise monk in Tibet. And you were subservient to them, and you obedient to them, and that culture actually doesn't exist in the East anymore. But it never existed here. Well, older adults were disposable. They could no longer work the farm or work in the factory, so we had to kind of put them to a side. And then along came retirement communities. It's like, oh look, we can even house them over here. And kind of the last great ism that's acceptable is ageism, where we can make fun of older adults. And there's a whole group of folks who've come out with boomers and others who've reached this stage of life and said, okay, we got to stamp this out. We got to be anti-ageist. and there's anti-ageism campaigns all over the place. And I looked at them and said, that's great. That's a great part of what needs to be done. We got to see it, point it out, and say, no, that's wrong. Just like in the 50s, we saw the signs that said white only's entrance. It said, no, that's wrong. We got to stop that. So we need people to point it out. But I saw that there's another side to it, because that whole anti-ageism thing is all about what I'm right and you're doing something wrong, and I'm going to point out what you're doing wrong. And it almost comes across as angry old people saying, get off my lawn. And I thought, wait a second. The reality is some of this ageism, in fact, a lot of this ageism, is how we think and treat ourselves as we get older. I mean, have you ever been at a birthday party with someone who's turning in their 50s or 60s, and there's black balloons, and there's, you're over the hill and all of that? We've been doing that forever. Well, that's what we have to stop. We have to stop acting ashamed of our age and life stage just because we've gotten to be 65 and older. I think back to when I was a kid and I was 12 years old and I'm hanging out with a group of 8-year-olds. I would be bragging about the fact I'm 4 years older than them. I'm 5 years older than you, Christina. I've been around the earth 5 more times. I've seen
That's
5
true.
years more stuff than you have. So don't you think bad about me. I feel sorry for you. You haven't experienced as much life as I have. So it's that attitude shift that I want to encourage boomers and older adults themselves to embrace. And openly gray it's not a term I came up with. Some women on the internet who decided they didn't want to color their hair started doing it. But the more I thought about it, the more I said, why can't that just be the name of a movement where we kind of do what openly gay did for the gay population, which is to say, we're coming out of the closet. We're going to pronounce who we are. We're going to proclaim who we are. And we're going to be proud of it. And you're going to have to accept us. So that's what I'd like to see older adults do. It's like, I'm not ashamed of my age. I'm going to embrace it. And I'm, growing older, it's not a problem. It's not a disease. It's a blessing. I mean, the fact that I'm going to have a longer life, the more life I can put in my years, the better.
Yeah.
So that's the idea behind Openly Gray.
I like it. I honestly do. And I think it's great. And I joined and I'm now a part of it as well, because but I think for it to happen is, you're right. Boomers are going to have to get out there and say it. But I also feel like hopefully it'll be loud enough for advertising to see it, and for young people, right, to begin to understand it. I do think there's some teaching and for younger people learning from older people, they're like, they're wiser, and learn from them. But I do feel that there is still such a stigmatism around the way someone visually looks, right? And that's why
Sure.
I like the Openly Gray, and because just to I agree to, especially so hard for women to embrace their colors, but the color of their hair. But I'll tell you, there is more makeup, moisturizers, injections that are out there that it just puts you in this place to feel bad about getting older. It's hard. It's really hard. So there's a lot of big changes that need to make.
Yeah, and this is not about your hair color. This is about your attitude. I don't care if you color your hair or not. And if you want to use the tools and technologies out there to make yourself, look as good as you can at your age, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I don't think we're doing what, the prior generation did, which was to freeze their face in time. Like, the Chers of the world. It's like, okay, she's not aged since she was 35. Like, what's going on with that? And she's like 78 or almost 80, I think. So there's some of that I think that boomers are accepting it's okay to grow older. It's okay to have some wrinkles, and it's okay. You just want to look the best you can at the age you are. And that's the Openly Gray mindset. And accept the way.
Embrace it. Embrace the way you are.
Hey everyone, this is JB Ambrose, the producer of Life Conversations. I just wanted to hop in here and say thank you so much for tuning into part 1 of our 2-part episode with Matt Thornhill. He is such an awesome guy. And next episode, we are going to hop into Matt's Cozy Home Community Project. And we are going to talk a little bit about building community as we age and why it's so important. So I really thank you all from the bottom of my heart for tuning in. And if you have the opportunity to share this or any of our other episodes with a friend or somebody you know who would find any of our information useful, that would be amazing, because we're trying to grow our subscribers, and it would just really mean the world to us. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and we look forward to having you listen to our next episode.